Hi, this is Vincent, and welcome to Right of Way, a vlog about traffic, transport, and road safety. Today, we're with John Valinan of 3M. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Vincent.
So what do you do here at 3M?
I'm a transportation safety application engineer, and I work on reflective sheetings that are used on road signs.
You know, John, several months ago, I attended a sign making workshop that you conducted. I became very interested in some of the technical aspects of making road signs. And it's good that you were able to join us today to talk about road signs. John, what is the basis for all the road signs here in the Philippines?
The basis for the road signs is it starts with the DPWH manual, and also as a fallback, we also use the international standard, which is the MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Quickly,
what is the relationship between the DP manual and the MUTCD? When do we use the DP manual and when do we use the MUTCD?
The DPWH manual is a good start. It's pretty comprehensive to our current situation at the moment, where it already talks about the basic properties of signs, color, shape, fonts, and all those. But it wasn't updated as much, and so the MUTCD is more comprehensive technically. It has all the explanations, it has all the research, and it is widely used globally now. It starts with the US, in the UK, and many parts of Asia.
Okay. And John, what are some of the basic principles behind road signs? What are the guiding principles of road signs?
Road signs must be clear. It must be visible to the road user, which is the driver basically. And enough light must be returned to the driver, especially with aging drivers where they are not so sensitive on the light anymore. So maximum light returning from the headlight, bouncing or reflecting from the signs, coming back to them would enable them to react according to that sign.
Okay, and so that would be, I guess, more applicable, let's say, at nighttime or during inclement weather when it's hard to see signs. I mean, yes. I guess in broad daylight, retroreflectivity isn't so important, but I guess in bad weather or at nighttime. And so when we look at signs, I mean, I've talked about this in my previous episodes, but what are some of the basic components of a good sign?
First, when we talk about the DP manual, where there is a standard for what type of signs. We have warning signs, regulatory signs, and whatnot. And we also have colors, the shape, the font especially, and the letter size.
So when we talk about the road sign classifications, we talk about warning signs, directional signs, informative signs, guide signs, even like tourist signs.
Yes.
Each of those, if I remember the DPWH manual, each of those has a different color scheme.
Yes.
In a sense, color coded. So that from afar, if it's a particular color, you know just by its color what kind of sign it is.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
And so what are some of the basic color combinations, for example, of those classification of signs?
So we have green for wayfinding signs or street names. So from afar, when you see green, you would immediately see that it's a road sign, a street name coming on.
Right.
When
I think that's what they call directional sign.
Directional signs. Yes.
In the DPWH manual. Okay, so that's white font on green background.
Yes.
Okay, what else?
And we also have warning signs, basically a red color on white background. And what it means is it's a warning sign by the color itself, and not only the color, also the shape. Okay. So we have specific shapes for warning signs, like it's a triangle basically.
Now, so you have like an upright triangle, an upside down triangle, and then we have informational signs.
Information signs are blue, blue in color and rectangular shape as well. And it talks about information on where restaurants are, toilets are.
This is what we see typically, let's say on an expressway, where a gasoline station is upcoming and there's a rest stop, you have restrooms and restaurants. And this is usually what is known as a informational sign.
Yes.
White lettering, blue background.
Blue background.
Okay. And so we've talked about a little bit about shape, which is important. We talked about color. What about the font? Now, I'm a kind of a font geek. Yeah. And when you started talking about fonts in your workshop, I kind of geeked out because the font is very important because it has to be readable. You can't be using scripts, for example, on a sign because those are hard to read. So there is, if I remember your presentation, there's a bit of science behind the fonts that are most legible, readable by motorists who are moving. I mean, we have to also remember that motorists are moving, depending on the speed zone, could be moving as fast as 100 kilometers per hour. So the font is important because it has to be legible.
Yes.
So what kind of fonts should we be using on signs?
We have two general fonts that we are using, and we have the highway font, highway Gothic fonts, basically. And we have the newer Clearview highway font sizes.
What I noticed, John, is a lot of signs that I see, that I notice, sometimes the fonts are different, sometimes they're spaced differently, sometimes they're stretched out, sometimes they're compressed.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And it makes it difficult to actually read signs. Whereas if you look, if we can take this as an example, or maybe even this, maybe might be a better example. Here you have, this is Clearview Highway.
Yes, this is Clearview highway font.
And the letters are evenly spaced.
Right.
And so from a distance, it's much clearer to read.
So there's from the other side of the font, it also has an effect on the reflectivity of the material. So both have to react so that most of the light doesn't halate, or there's no halation on the font.
When you gave that workshop, I heard that was the first time I heard that word, halation. So I had to Google it and said, oh, that's what halation is. And it's sort of visually, it's when it sort of bleeds off.
Right.
Right? So visually, when you look at a letter and maybe you see the blurring around the edges.
Right.
That's halation.
That's
right?
halation. So from a far distance, you would see the font, which is just a plain white, a long white word. And as you come closer, it starts to get clearer. And no, the lights reflecting on the font itself bleeds out from the edges, and they tend to connect.
Right.
Connect
so
the
it's hard,
letters.
it makes it hard to read.
Right.
So you want, in other words, you want a font that doesn't halate or has low halation.
Yes.
So that they don't bleed into one another, and it's easy to see individual letters distinctly.
Right.
So it's much easier to read. Okay. So, I'm taking a look at the sign. It looks very clean. It looks very easy to read, and you compare that to a lot of the signs we see out on the roads. That use different fonts, that use different kernings, which is the space between letters. And then, as you said, sometimes they expand the lettering, and sometimes they compress.
Compress it, and basically that's what they do because there's a constraint on the size. I think they start with the size of the substrate of the sign, and when the word gets long, the only way is to compress it. So that distorts everything: the spacing, the shape of the size of the substrate or the background. So
to a great extent, the size of the sign also depends on the actual words.
Yes.
So if these are short words like Manila or Bataan, then you can adjust the size of the sign.
Yes.
But if it's a little longer, like Bataan Terminal, then you should adjust the size of the sign to fit the word.
Right.
Because it seems like the other way around. They fit the word to fit the size of the sign.
That has to change.
Okay, so it's really the words that determine, to a certain extent, the size of a sign.
Yes.
But you're also telling me, John, when we're talking about the size of the sign, it also depends on the speed of the road.
Right. Now, as the road gets faster, you need more time. You need to more time to read what's in front. Okay, and for a typical 80 kilometers per hour speed, you would want a distance 300 meters. This is where you start to see that there's a sign. At 200 meters, you start to distinguish letters, able to read. And at 100 around, you start to react on that.
So you need, a motorist would need about a 300-meter distance to detect the sign, to read it, and then make a decision about how to respond to it.
Yeah, and it's all dependent on the speed.
Right.
So,
so 300 meters would be for about an 80-kilometer speed zone.
So for a faster speed roads like highways, they need more distance, 500 meters to 400 meters.
Okay, and then I guess when you're like a 40 kilometer per hour, 25 kilometer per hour speed zone, then shorter distances. Right. Okay, so the distance, or rather the speed of the road determines both the size and the placement of the sign. Okay, so these are important concepts.
Again, just to add to that, the when you say placement for faster or 3 or more lane roads, it's better to have the signs put overhead.
Okay, so this is what we see sometimes like in highways, where the sign isn't on the side of the road, but it's actually overhead.
Yes.
And that's so that it's visible from further distances.
Right.
Okay, because I noticed that if a sign is on the side of the road, it can be blocked.
It could be blocked.
By vehicles next to it.
Lorries, trucks, yes.
Okay, now comes the fun part. We get to make a sign.
Yes.
So what do we have here, John?
We have here a plotter cutter. And we're doing a brown electrocuttable film, or ECF. And we're doing a tourism sign.
Okay, because tourism signs are like for tourist destinations.
Yes.
And according to the DPWH manual, that should be white on brown. Okay, is this retroreflective?
This is not a retroreflective. It's basically an overlay film on a retroreflective film.
Okay, cool. So this is just like a basic printer.
It is.
Except that this one cuts the film.
Yes.
Cool. So can I hit the send button?
Go ahead.
I'm going to hit the send button. John, tell us a little bit about 3M technology on retroreflectivity, because ever since I was a teenager, I've been fascinated with this retroreflectivity of 3M. I used to put it on all sorts of things where I could get my hands on this stuff, I could put it on whatever I needed to put it on. And the science behind the retroreflectivity has evolved.
Yes, from glass beads previously, encapsulated glass beads, to now mirrors basically. So under a microscope you will see 3-sided mirrors arranged in the cube, corner of a cube, something like that.
Like what they call like a diamond shape.
Yes, and light will bounce off and returns to the observer, or where the light source is. So,
being a bit of a nerd, so how much of that light is reflected? So if you have 100 coming in, how much comes back out?
About 50-70%.
50 or 70% of the light that shines on it comes back to the viewer.
Yes.
Oh, not bad, not bad. And that's enough for the viewer to be able to see these.
Yes. And for the standards, we have a specification for how much light has to go back, and we use an instrument we call it retroreflectometry.
So that's me and John geeking out over sign making. When I left his lab, John said he'd stay behind to make a few more signs. John's a much bigger geek than I am. So we're on our way now to the MMDA's sign fabrication shop in Pasig. We're going to meet John there, as well as Director Noemi Resho of the MMDA's Traffic Engineering Center. See you there. So, ma'am, maybe we just start. Thank you for, first of all, thank you for inviting us. I've been wanting to visit your facility here ever since I started the vlog, and to be honest, it's impressive. I mean, you know, there's nice equipment and everything's orderly, and or maybe they knew we were arriving. So anyway, Director Resio, maybe you could give us a little background on this facility here. When did it start, and some of the things that you've been able to do in terms of improving your capacity to make signs, mga equipment, stuff like that.
Actually, itong Traffic Engineering Division started during the time of Bayani Fernando.
So early
2003. 2003 because he believes na mas makakatipid ang MMDA kung by in-house na lang. Instead na bumili kami ng mga signs, job out sa labas, bili na lang kami ng sticker, bili kami ng mga gamit, kami na lang ang gagawa. So sa tagal na, kumbaga naging expertise na ng mga tao ni Engineer Paulino na mag-fabricate. So magkaroon kami ng sarili naming fabrication. Na eto na, nakita nyo naman, very organized and napakalaki ng natitipid. Kasi kung contractor kasi automatic, may 30% dyan na 32%, 30% na profit yung contractor. Whereas kung dito, nakakatipid kami and lalo na yung mga immediate. Kunyari, after 2 days, kailangan makapaglagay ka. Kung kontrata yan, ang tagal ng papel natin dyan, di ba? Eh dito, pag mga ilang piraso lang, kaya na nilang gawin, 2 or 3 days, nakakapag-install na kami. Kami rin bumibili ng poste, rivets, lahat ng ginagamit. By in-house lahat yan. And we are given a certain amount of budget every year para lang gamitin dito. So, sa tingin ko kami ang pinakamaraming nailagay na signs.
So ma'am, let's just start with the basics about the signs because there's a lot of confusion in the public about what MMDA is responsible for. So they'll see a sign and they'll automatically assume na, uy, MMDA, kay MMDA yan. But alam naman natin, hindi naman totoo yun because medyo limited yung area of responsibility ang MMDA. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Actually, ang in charge sa installation ng road signs is the DPWH because ang DPWH in charge on all national roads all over the Philippines. But here in Metro Manila, merong naglalagay ang DP, pero mas marami yung nailalagay ng MMDA because we are in charge of the traffic management in Metro Manila. So, component niyan yung mga road signs. So, mas maraming nailalagay ang MMDA sa Metro Manila.
Pero ma'am, even within Metro Manila, you're limited to basically national roads. And then the local roads are either LGU or barangay. So, for example, EDSA is a national road. So, lahat ng signage sa EDSA sa inyo.
Amin, kung minsan naglagay ang DP.
Okay, so it's hati kayo ni DPWH. Pero sa mga local roads tulad ng Makati Avenue, for example, sakop yan ng City of Makati, hindi sa inyo. Okay. Isa pa, yung ang napansin ko sa mga signs ng MMDA, may nakalagay doon sa baba, MMDA/pangalan ng LGU. So, kapag may ganon, ang ibig sabihin nun, sa inyo galing. Kung walang ganon, baka sa LGU, barangay, or DP. Okay, so, public, so we can distinguish between the signs of MMDA and those that are not theirs. Kanina ma'am, I saw that they were making a parang speed limit sign, 10 kilometers per hour. So sabi ko, malamang school zone to. And it was silk screen. Sabi ng mga tao nyo, it was requested by the, sabi nila, it was requested by the barangay. So tinanong ko, sino pang magbabayad nito? Sabi ng tao nyo, kayo. And then di ang magbabayad ng signs. And sa tingin ko, parang unfair naman yun. Kasi sobrang alam naman natin na medyo limited yung budget ng MMDA tapos karga niya pa yung mga signs ng iba. So paano po yun?
Actually, ang MMDA kasi meron kaming IRA. Share ng LGU. Automatic yun na 5% of the IRA of LGUs ng Metro Manila, automatic yan pumapasok sa budget ng MMDA. So yun yung tinatawag naming local fund. Aside dun sa GAA, yung General Appropriations Act na yearly binibigay sa amin, meron kaming internal source, yun nga yung namin, local fund. So kapag nagre-request yung mga local government units, the mayors, the barangays, nagbibigay din yung MMDA. as part of the contribution, kailangan namang yung kinontribute niya sa amin, may maibalik naman kami sa kanila. So, yun yung under the 7 mandates of MMDA, and one of those is the traffic management. So, naglalagay kami ng mga signs based doon sa request ng LGUs and different barangays.
Isa po, ma'am, makano ang budget ng MMDA for signs? Annual?
Actually, budget natin rin is around 7, 10, ganyan, yearly. Nagre-request kami ng kung ano yung kailangan namin. But as I said, hindi naman lahat ng nire-request namin na-approvean. Kumbaga, request kami ng 20 million, bibigyan lang kami ng 7, ng 5. So, yung, kung ano yung budget yearly, yun yung pinagkakasya namin doon sa napakarami namin ginagawa rito sa Traffic Engineering Division.
So, kung kayong tatanungin, ang sapat na budget is about 20M.
Hindi lang.
Hindi lang, kulang pa yan. Pero ang sabi nyo, yung budget nyo is about, kung minsan 5, kung minsan 7, kung minsan 10.
5 yan eh.
So, sobrang kulang yan.
Sobrang kulang.
Kinalculate namin kanina, kung ang sign, ang average cost ng sign, sabi ni Sir Rene, is about 9,000. Sabihin natin 10,000 just to round up. Ang 7 million na budget is only good for 700 signs. Sobrang kulang yung 700 signs. Sa EDSA pa lang eh. You'll need more than 700 signs yata
And
eh.
even the maintenance. Siyempre, yung mga luma mo nang nilagay, kailangan papalitan mo, lilinisin mo, or kunyari nabangga o nasira yung poste. So, kailangan pa rin masustain yun, kasama pa yun dun.
So kasama dun sa 7 million na budget ay yung maintenance.
Kasama pa.
Wow. So sobrang kulang. So I think we have to understand the public that this is a real constraint. I mean, I think working with the 7 million peso budget to put up all the signs for the national roads within Metro Manila is a tough thing. And I think yun ang sinasabi niya, ma'am, na kailangan yung tipirin. yung mga retaso ang ginagamit nyo, yung mga materyales.
Yeah, nire-recycle yung mga plancha ganyan.
Kahapon nandun kami sa workshop ni John sa 3M. Pinakita niya sa amin yung ano talaga ang dapat na sign, na fully backed with reflectorized stickering and everything like that. Pero kung ganon, alam naman natin, mahal yun. So, ang nakita namin sa labas, tinitipid talaga yung reflectorized stickering kasi hindi kaya talaga ng budget eh. So, ang nakita natin, ang reflectorized lang, yung border, tsaka yung lettering. Yung background, hindi siya reflectorized.
Tsaka kapag kumbaga, marami kaming gagawin, silk screen printing na lang ginagawa namin para makatipid kami. Kasi kung lahat stickers, hindi talaga kakasya yung gamit namin yearly. Kaya, kumbaga, yung iba binabatikos kami, hindi reflectorized yung signs nyo, pangit yung nilagay nyo, hindi nakaayon yung mga paggupit nyo. Kasi nga, tinitipid namin yung mga retaso ginagamit namin. Minsan, yung mismong plancha, yung GI, yung recycled. Oo, yung mga poste, nire-recycle dyan lahat. Para makatipid.
Yun, so medyo serious constraint yan sa sign-making capacity ng MMDA. So maybe we can take a tour of your facility here. Like I said, when I entered, I was kind of impressed. Sabi nga ni Rika, it's very clean, orderly, things are stored properly. So maybe, Sir Rene, we can take a look around. So we'll turn it over to Sir Rene. Sir.
Okay.
Well, that was very interesting for me, John,
Yes,
to see this facility because I've been wanting to see it for such a long time, ever since I did my series on signs. And it was for me, very, very illuminating to see them in action and to hear from Director Noemi about some of the constraints. But John, I'd like to ask you, as a sign-making expert, give us your perspective of the facility here in terms of sign-making.
In terms of equipment, what I see lacking is laminator. So they do a lot of hand laminating works. That adds up to some inaccuracies. They do have digital printers. I think that's a good way forward. Plotter cutters, the basic plotter cutters they have. Material-wise, they are aware how to use reflective sheeting. As we saw and as we understood, with the limited budget, they make do of saving the reflective sheetings to the point that they sacrifice the background reflectivity and make the letters reflective. So what it would look like at night will have a dark background and a floating letter.
And I think this is, for me, one of my main takeaways, John, is this 7 million peso budget of theirs to make signs. For me, it's a real constraint because 7 million is, I mean, it would seem to me that that's an extremely small budget for them to be able to make signs. And don't forget that they're covering all national roads within Metro Manila, and that's quite a bit. So as you said, ang nakita natin, they really save on their materials, the expensive ones especially, and that's why we see signs that are not fully reflectorized. We were discussing also yesterday, John, you've had occasion to work with some local government units, some provincial governments, some city or municipal governments, and you're telling me also even at that level, same thing. I mean, the guys here seem to have a certain level of expertise about sign making, but then I think you were telling me about when you go out of Metro Manila to let's say provinces or cities or municipalities, iba yung intindi nila sa sign making, ano? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, our experience at the Bataan workshop made me realize that how far we are way behind understanding how to make signs or even designing a sign. We do have manuals. The DP manual is quite comprehensive enough to guide an engineer, and also we have the international standard, which is a very rich of technical information. But again, come to realize engineers would not have heard about this, would have not, and they would only depend on their best judgment, being good at drawings, and also using Google search. They would only depend on the images, cut and paste and trace on it, and that would be their basis. There are available tools which are useful to engineers, and comparing the method that they use, which is based on a bitmap image, there are sources of images which are vectorized, and that's part of what we would like to teach engineers and use these tools that are already available.
But you guys are doing a lot of training in this area. So I attended the one with MMDA, but you're also doing training for other agencies and LGUs?
Yes, that's what we plan to do for the rest of the years. We are selecting the major regions that we conduct these workshops. And what we're also finding out are follow-throughs. So if we have a workshop, LGUs tend to appreciate it, and they would call us back for retraining a specific group of in their department, and it's a good response and for engineers to understand how the designs would be done. Just mere specifics on clear fonts, borders, the sizes, they would use it and put it in their plans, put it specifically in their plans, so that would cascade down to the sign maker, down to who cuts the letters, and follow the standard.
Okay, John. Do you have any last thoughts before we close out today? Any parting shots?
Yeah, I hope to see many more signs in the future. Habang buhay pa siguro ako din. If we would want to leave something, there will be nice signs, standard signs, just how the other countries do it. And for my part, sagot ko ng training, sagot ko ng tips, yun ang pwede kong i-share.
Great, that's great, John. Like I said, when I attended your training workshop last May, I learned a lot, and so it's good that you're conducting those. As far as I'm concerned, my main takeaway here, and this is something that I've been saying for a while, is that the MMDA is really working with a lot of constraints, and we talk about budgetary constraints. And as much as I hit them very hard for some of the work they do, I also have come to understand that these constraints really don't allow them to do the kind of quality that John and I and others are really expecting from the MMDA and even the DPWH. And so, like I said, if there are any legislators out there who are listening, who are watching, you might really want to consider increasing the budget for the MMDA, because 7 million pesos on an annual basis is a paltry amount compared to what is needed to really make international standard quality signs. Hopefully after watching today's episode, the viewer will come away with a greater understanding of what are really the good components, or the components of a good sign. We're talking about color, font, size, placement, and all of that. We know that they have constraints, but still we want to strive to achieve that. We want to be able to get to a point where signs are recognized as an integral part of road safety and not an optional part. MMDA is doing the best under the circumstances, but we really need to do better, because with faulty signs, with poor signs, that causes injury, damage to property, and in some cases, death. And so we really have to pay attention to this. So with that, I would like to thank you, John, again for joining us on this whole episode, from sign making to here in the workshop, and talking with us and sharing your expertise on sign making. I was saying that I'm a sign geek, but you're more of a sign geek. So that's it. That's the end of another episode of Right of Way. If you have any comments, questions, photos, or videos that you'd like to share with us, you can email us at rightofway@rappler.com, or you can send us a message on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at rightofwayph. Until then, this is Vincent, and I'm out of here.